It's the Redirect Podcast. Search industry research, discussion, and analysis from the Black Truck Media and Marketing Headquarters. And now, redirecting you to the Black Truck team.
And welcome to another edition of the Redirect Podcast. This is episode 15. It's Friday, September 8th, 2017. I'm Jason Dodge, and welcome once again by Patrick and Ashley from the Black Truck team. Welcome, team.
Hey.
Made it through another week.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on
everywhere
in the world right now, and
as if there wasn't already enough going on.
This is true. So we're not here to get all political, right? We're here to talk about search and digital marketing.
Yes.
So with a lot of the recent happenings with, let's just say, natural disasters as of lately, because that's really what they are. And this is, I think, being very sincere and heartfelt. I want to make sure that I preface any discussion that we have about this as that our thoughts definitely go out to people that are affected by a lot of the things that are happening right now. That's weighing heavily on a lot of people. With the hurricanes that have happened, so Hurricane Harvey in Texas, basically 2 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. Hurricane Irma happening, soon to make landfall, supposedly here, and it will, in Florida tomorrow. So by the time of this publishing and stuff, it probably will already have made landfall. So, and the intense wildfires that are just ripping up and down the West Coast. I had kind of set out probably in the past 2 days to start looking at kind of some search trend data. And I know that's something that Google Trends has been going on. You can go to Google Trends and you can look at Hurricane Irma and how that's comparing and kind of top questions and things of that nature. But what really was intriguing to me was I really wanted to know how natural disasters influenced search intent. So we can say, how do natural disasters influence search? How do they influence search intent? Meaning, what's driving that? What do those search queries look like? A little bit self-serving here and I'm looking at Ashley and Patrick because I know that I've been working on a blog post that supports this and just kind of provides some additional details here. So check the Black Truck Media blog. There will be something out shortly about how natural disasters influence search. And what was interesting is that I wanted to look at it over a time, kind of a time period spanning back to, say, 2005 with Hurricane Katrina. So Hurricane Katrina happened in July 2005, and then fast forward up 12 years to our time period right now, within August and September 2017. It's a big, big time period. But what I really wanted to do was focus on kind of four major search queries, which were, on a general end, hurricane safety. So the theme of hurricane safety, how to prepare for a hurricane preparedness, one and the same, and then what to do during a hurricane. So all pretty major. There's a lot of you don't have to be a search expert to understand how important those keywords are to a lot of individuals. There's a lot of data out there that supports they're super popular around certain periods of time. So what I did is I plugged those into Google Trends, and I wanted to see where those plotted out in popularity across the course of the last 12 years. And what's interesting is you can see the peaks and valleys, and the major spikes you would think are during those times of these major hurricanes. So what I've done is I plotted that out to show, okay, when was Hurricane Katrina, when was Hurricane Ike in 2008, Hurricane Irene in 2011, Hurricane Sandy in 2012, Hurricane Matthew in 2016, Hurricane Harvey as of recent, and then, of course, the everything that's happening with Hurricane Irma. Now, a lot has happened in technology and the digital and social space in the past 12 years. Facebook was still in its infancy, right? 2005, it was around for a year. Pat, you pointed out earlier, it was still at that time open to primarily college students, right? It didn't have the mass appeal. I think even at the end of 2005, they had something like 5 million users or something. Not nearly what just the mass scale that they have right now. The iPhone didn't even come out for 2 more years in 2007, so our access to the mobile web for people that weren't using a BlackBerry, mobile web was pretty much in its real early infancy. So
those PDAs, personal digital assistant.
You have PDA, right? Clickety click click.
I know that was someone else. That was definitely not me. I didn't have that little annoying keyboard in class. I wasn't that guy.
Well, I think what's interesting is that I was anxious to see what the popularity of those searches were, and it definitely, as time has gone on, because you can go back in kind of the Wayback Machine and look at generally how many searches were done annually or daily in Google in 2005 to how many searches are done daily or annually right now in Google, and it's mind-boggling, the data that's out there. But what I really wanted to see was when did those searches happen and what was their popularity? And what I found was with Katrina, that happened in July 2005. And it wasn't until around September 2005 that I started to see those spike for any of those terms, whether that's hurricane safety, how to prepare for a hurricane, anything like that. So, it took a whole 2 months later after the fact for people to start kind of generating their interest around that. But what was even more interesting was that the big key theme around there was very generic. It was more hurricane safety focused, where if you take that and go to the next major hurricane of 2008, Hurricane Ike, same theme. So between 2005 and 2008, the focus was very much hurricane safety. There's little blips in the radar about preparedness and being prepared and what do I do during. But it wasn't until really Hurricane Irene in 2011, counting on my fingers here, three more years, that we see almost a complete mind shift in people searching for, how to prepare for the hurricane or hurricane preparedness and what to do. So people have gone from this reactive approach to very much a proactive approach. So it's really fascinating to me. And there's a little bit of a shift in there during Hurricane Sandy timeframe as well. But now if you fast forward to 2017, the focus is very, very much more toward being prepared and what to do during, and less on general hurricane safety. So I found this extremely fascinating and kind of a really weird time that we're in right now with these, but nonetheless, I really wanted to set out and understand, how search data can be influenced by these natural disasters and things that happen in our world. But
you showed me a graph of the trend, how there was this time scale. I don't know if it went all the way back to Katrina, but there was a blip for Harvey 2 weeks ago that was yay high, and then there was the Irma blip, and Irma's was made Harvey's bump in the graph looked like it was a little tiny anthill versus Mount Everest. How people all of a sudden were like, okay, so we just saw what happened to Texas, we should pay attention to what's going to happen here in Florida, and they actually got off their butts and started doing some research. I thought that was the biggest thing. It's no one really cares until it happens to you, and when it's happening to you, you're going to do your homework. So I thought that was really interesting, looking at that no one, I'm sure if you didn't have the Irma bump on that curve, it would have been a big hill for Harvey, but you throw the Irma in there and it went bananas.
Yeah.
And they're saying, Irma is one of the biggest hurricane to
longest sustained recorded 185 mile an hour
since Hurricane Andrew, right, which happened in the 90s. So 90. Don't quote me on this. I'd have to go and look. I didn't go that far back. Was it 92?
I believe so.
Okay, so 92, very much. If anybody was on the internet, super way early, right? I mean, let's not even have an internet discussion until about 94 or 95. So There's not going to be anything there to support it. That we have regular mass media versus social media and digital media that we know today, which is very live and very updated. So to take things a step further in our discussion, I wanted to take it and I wasn't happy with just Google Trends. I wanted to go a little bit geekier on it. So knowing what those major hurricanes were, we identified those in Google Trends and knew where the spikes were. I wanted to take those hurricanes and think of them as brands. So Hurricane, again, I know, I'm sorry, but Hurricane Sandy, Hurricane Katrina, and let's plug them into some of the other keyword tools out there that can mimic Google Suggest. So that could be anything from Answer the Public, Keyword.io, Moz's keyword tool. Keyword Explorer has features in there to show questions. What I'm looking for is more long tail Q&A type queries and themes that come out of it, and then taking that and running it again, getting geeky with it and running it through Ngram Analyzer online and text comparison tools to see what kind of themes start to surface. And now I can't go back historically and understand, what was being searched in 2005. Mm-hmm. There's probably others out there that can do that, and great. But I was very curious to see what were the standout themes. And very much the correlation between all of those, the growing trend here is very much how, why, what if, cause of. Actually, we talked before about versus. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of search queries that are happening around, individuals are even asking questions currently like, can Hurricane Irma go as far as New York, right? So very East Coast, Eastern Seaboard based, but people asking like how far can this thing go? Or how does it compare to X hurricane? So it's really kind of crazy to start to see these patterns and start to see how this stacks up. And this is subjective. This is all subjective data, and I could get completely tore apart by this, but because there's not complete search query data, like how many what's the volume and search volume and things like that. But literally, if you just see what type of words can be mashed together and what the popularity of them are, that's going to give you a pretty good indication of how we as individuals in the world are searching for these things based on natural disasters. So,
The first thing that I'm thinking of is what is even out there. I mean, obviously, they're not going to get an answer to that question, really.
Who's capitalizing on it is the news. It's the news publications are totally capitalizing on it, right? And Google's doing a fairly good job, I would say, right now at filtering that data. There's very, very few ads in that space. I would completely anticipate someone like a generator company or something like that to be in there. And there are some here and there, but that's probably again based on our location, which would make sense. If the hurricane's happening in Florida and we're in Michigan and it's starting cause for concern about natural disasters and what could happen, I can make the connection there that now's the time to maybe, amplify our position. So news sources are totally dominating that, and Google's doing kind of some of their own curation in the live space too. When you search for where's the hurricane at right now, and hurricane trackers and things like that. That's super, super popular. People want to know, but yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, Pat, you had something similar.
Yeah, kind of similar, but pretty different. So you just mentioned Google filtering, Google doing a pretty good job of filtering those out. So that filter is an algorithm. I want to talk about algorithms.
Don't we talk about algorithms all day, every day?
All day, every day. That's what we do. We're here to win the algorithm. So I'm not talking about an article. I'm going to reference a podcast. One of the podcasts I regularly listen to. The
Redirect podcast.
Not quite this time. That's one of them. Okay. Another one that I listen to quite regularly is 99% Invisible. It's long-tail research. explorative essays, things like that. This one is called "The Age of the Algorithm," and it caught my attention obviously because we here in this office we kind of live and die by the algorithm, and it's what we're working on. And I jumped into it and waiting for them to get into the marketing side of it because it's not normally a marketing podcast. And it starts off talking about the April 9th event on United Airline Flight 3411, where that man was aggressively and forcefully removed from the flight. He was selected by an algorithm. United Airlines plugged his information into a computer, hit go, it did a little crunching, and it said, this guy, he's our least valuable customer on this plane. He's probably not going to use us again. He was a one-off guy. He bought his ticket early. He bought his ticket at a low value. So if we hurt his feelings, it's really okay. So they yanked him off the plane. So that kind of drew me in. I just kept listening to it. And I was really waiting to see the marketing side of this and how are they going to spin this towards marketing. And it went a whole different direction. So the algorithm was kind of, in the marketing world, I see the algorithm that we always reference was built around getting the right products in front of the right people, or having our clients be seen for the right search. It's all tied to keywords. Well, it's not only used in search marketing.
Well,
it's
sure.
used everywhere. It references they gave. Will banks use it when they're vetting loan applicants? Is this individual going to be able to pay a loan back based upon their credit history and answers on their credit application? Obviously, what we see on social media, it's used in hiring schemes through resume review. You put all the resume information into a database, hit go, and see who comes out on top. Okay, these are the ones we're going to call back for interviews. Evaluating job performance in an environment where you have maybe a couple hundred people doing the same job, where you can evaluate performances based on same criteria. You can see who's really doing what. And then the kind of darker side of it that this podcast went into was talking about the court system and prison system. It's used on picking sentences. It's used on picking probation periods. It's used on people getting, if they will be granted probation or not, how long their term is going to be. There was at one point it said in there that just as many marijuana crimes come out of white neighborhoods as they do black neighborhoods, but black neighborhoods obviously get more steeper penalties in the court systems. It was pretty dark. One of the I'm gonna butcher this word because I can't. Ashley, you'll probably correct me because you're our grammar police in here. Recidivism.
Yep.
Okay, recidivism risk algorithms, which are supposed to assess how likely it is a person will break the law again. Some judges use these risk scores to determine amount of bail, length of sentence, and likelihood of parole. It kind of opened my eyes and changed the way I see a lot of the stuff that's happening in front of us with search and especially social media. What we saw a lot this week in the news, if you've been glued to the news because of weather and everything happening in the world, it just came out that the Russians more than likely spent $100,000 on ad campaigns through social media in a 2-year period that ended around May of 2017. And so this statement isn't necessarily a validation or endorsement of what they did. However, what I think they maybe did in that instance was they used a system that was already in place, and they had a mastery of audience retargeting. And they took that, that audience, that retargeting audience that we build maybe for like that, looking for that 20-something crowd that's into fitness and goes out for a drink on Friday night, whatever. They took that audience that we might see as maybe 50,000 people across the country, and they applied it to a 300 million refined audience, which is basically the United States. And the material they peddled was shady, but what they did is they just took a system that was already in place, that was already set up, and all they had to do is plug in the criteria. And that's how they did this influence campaign is what they're calling it. And we as in marketers put the request out to have this ability to create, to find the right audience, and then developers and designers built these algorithms to make sure that they saw it. And the biggest argument during the latest political run-up was, you can't do that. Well, it's right there. It's never been done that way, but it's because it wasn't available that way. Jason, you talk about how in 2005, the internet was at its infancy as far as ability off a desktop computer.
Mm-hmm.
Well, 4 years ago, it wasn't quite the same. Jason, you've been in the pay-per-click world for a handful of years now, 12. Yeah. We always say, I used to do this when I could buy it for half a penny.
Yeah, half a cent.
Yeah. The availability of things and the mastery of it keeps changing and changing, and it's not. It's expanding. It's almost like we're creating this dark side, and it's. I'm not implying this isn't a political statement at all. It has nothing to do with that. But it's being used for bad.
Well, yeah. I mean, look at the Wall Street Journal article that came out. Was it just? I think it was this morning. It might have been talking about how the FBI is now investigating Uber over what they're calling program targeting for their rival Lyft. And it just goes in, it tries to go in depth, and Wall Street Journal does a fantastic job at covering things, but they're talking about how the Uber used software internally to, what they're saying, illegally interfere with its competitors. Now, I don't know if that's targeting or anything like that, but what they're saying is they could track drivers working for rival service Lyft. Now look, there's an algorithm out there, call it big data, call it Facebook, call it whatever. There's nothing stopping anybody from targeting a great population user base on Facebook alone that works for either Uber or Lyft or name your flavor of company. So then the question is that illegal or not? Is that a legal play? Because either, Patrick, on your side, the algorithm exists. Maybe on the other side of the fence, it's machine learning that's also coupled with the algorithm. Those are really tough. Those are really tough gray areas from an ethical perspective to try and cover.
And it's a gray area that hasn't been covered in the court system yet. I think it's because this is how the worlds adapt, and the court systems adapt, and laws change and get established because people discover things and do it, and it becomes this strategic approach to make them rise in society. And then it's like, oh, you can't do that. That's illegal. It's like, how is it illegal?
So what does that mean? What does that mean for a brand then? What's a takeaway from this? To me, the standout is you've got to be smarter with what you're doing.
Right.
In your marketing.
How do you crack into that audience?
Right.
That's the takeaway, is get in that audience, and then, I don't like to use the word manipulate, but find a way to get in there. A second thing that popped into my mind, I'm a Reddit stalker. There was an article or a link in there that I'll share in the blog post correlating to this podcast. All about how echo chambers and thought bubbles, filter bubbles, how the left and the right in the political front, their social medias maintained separation. The left didn't see what the right was doing because that's the way they curated their content. And there's no way to, there wasn't any correlation. You've got to find a way to jump into those. And I thought it was really interesting, and it linked to the Reddit post linked to a research study that was done by by ResearchGate.net. It's got the whole paper associated with it, and I'll share all those. And between what I saw with the ad campaign that the Russians paid for versus this whole thought bubble process, echo chambers, there was over 2,000 comments on the Reddit post, so there was some good conversation going about it. And it was just kind of fascinating to me between listening to all this stuff that I just stumbled upon. It's the stuff I listen to outside of my work life. It's the stuff I just kind of just like to enjoy, how it all connected through together and really kind of made me question. It's what I'm doing is I might try to get your product to show up or get your business or your industry, your service to show up, but like it's being used so many different ways throughout the world and for different purposes.
Different than we think.
Yeah, different than we think, and it kind of put you in perspective of size. Like, okay, like a hurricane just rolled through, and I wasn't prepared. I'm going to research how to prepare for the next one.
Yeah.
Is this a hurricane? How am I preparing for this next one? And I think the whole world is trying to figure out what the next hurricane is, let alone how you prepare for that hurricane.
Mm-hmm. I think it's true. Ashley, any comment on it?
I didn't know we were going to get so philosophical today, guys.
Well, but let's think about it though. So, I mean, if we come full circle on this, you've got algorithms, search intent, all of these things. The algorithm is driven by a computer and a robot, and the search intent is driven by a user. But they all have one common theme, right? So to go on some philosophical trip is okay because at the end of the day, the common theme here is the human being.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the biggest takeaway there is you have to start focusing more attention on that intent. Understanding, probably to Patrick's point, this is a good tie-in the topic you brought up of what does that mean for the algorithm? So how does search intent influence the algorithm, or vice versa? And how do you maybe market your content toward that if you are in that business, whether you are a nonprofit or organization providing humanitarian aid, or quite frankly, you are a home standby generator company in the Midwest who can capitalize off of that by starting to fulfill those needs. So there's a lot of different ways you can take it, but the key center point in that is the human being. So
the human being, and maybe this is a conclusion for the podcast, whatever.
Well, we're live.
Yeah, we're live. There was a person being interviewed in that podcast. Her name was Kathy O'Neill, and she wrote a book called "Weapons of Math Destruction: How Big Data Increases Inequality and Threatens Democracy."
Whoa.
Yeah, one of her statements in the podcast was, this is the end of it. But in reality, every algorithm reflects the choices of its human designer. So a human wrote that algorithm.
That's right. Machine learning started somewhere, right?
Yeah.
So you have to take that into consideration when you're thinking about all these advancements in technology. They all started with a human being at some point in time. And with that, that is a thought-provoking element to leave you on. So for those of you out there, good luck. Thank you for listening, and we will look forward to talking to you again on the next episode of the Redirect Podcast. Thank you.
This has been the Redirect Podcast. Check out the show notes at blacktruckmedia.com and add us on iTunes and Stitcher.